Hi, my name is Robby. I am one half of the team of Robby, Grodin, and Kyle Montag. We will be redesigning the Toscanini Gestural controller interface written by Conductive IO, which is myself. Um, it is an open source program designed in Max MSP. It is used to aid performers by adding gestural control to their on-stage performances, whether this is for music, art, or any form of technology. The one thing that I would like to start off with is that I have used Max MSP in a rather unconventional way when designing this patch. I've tried to emulate uh, an actual plugin VST uh, using Max MSP, which is not the usual usage. Most composers and developers tend to use Max MSP in patching mode, which looks like this, as you can see. There's quite a bit of mess here. But this is actually even rather clean for a Max MSP patch. So the modularity of it was, of course, to aid in the open source use of it, of the program. That way, users can use modules they want, discard modules they don't want, add and manipulate modules as they desire. As I said, this is not the usual usage of Max MSP, so I'll show you a quick example of what Max MSP patches tend to look like. This is an earlier version. I believe this looks like Max 3, whereas mine was coded in Max 5. Um, and as you can see, it's quite a mess. There are the patch cables right there, and these are all objects, and the patch cables, of course, signify routing. So it's very difficult to see what's going where and how it's getting there. So I've tried to use this in a much cleaner way. I've hidden a lot of the patch cables, pretty much all of them actually, and I've tried to use some of the objects in ways that are more useful as readouts more than input. So for example, this item right here that I'm pointing at, it is usually used for mouse input. However, I've decided to use this as a meter, and as you can see, I'll put it back in presentation mode. There's right there, and it lets you view the current progress for calibration. So that is the current state, and I'll let Kyle take it over.
Hello, I'm Kyle, and I'm going to be talking about the original interface for Toscanini and some of our decisions and thought processes involved in redoing it. So in front of you, you can see the original interface for Toscanini, and right off the bat, I think it's worthy to note the amount of white space involved in this interface. If you look at the calibration screen, you can see, already, if you look to the right, on the right-hand side of the calibration screen, you can see plenty of white space that is wasted, as well as to the right of the gesture recorder. Both of these were addressed in our final design by either adding or removing white space. As far as the calibration box goes, we simply remove the white space in the unnecessary area. As for the gesture recorder, we actually added axis displays like you see above for the X, Y, and Z on the side of the gesture recorder. And this was in an effort to give the user a more visual recognition of the fact that they're recording a gesture. Now, another big aspect of this interface to look at is kind of the visual breaks that are involved. If your eyes are going from the watch itself in the top left across to the z-axis in the top right, there's a lot of visual breaks that happen there with these boxes. And we thought that this was something that didn't really improve or enhance the user experience. In fact, it hindered it. In our minds, this software is meant to be used quickly and effectively while performing. It shouldn't be a task to use Toscanini while you're performing or practicing. It should be just as easy as playing or practicing normally with a pedal. And making it hard to traverse the data on the screen quickly just goes directly against this prerogative of ours. And so what we did in the final design is we removed a lot of the visual breaks, we combined certain boxes, and made other aspects of the colors less harsh so that there's less strain and stress on your eyes when you're using the interface. The most, I would say the most obvious issue with this interface is the lack of color. While black and white can be seen as, effective or minimalistic. At the same time, it can be very taxing to look at, especially if you're in a dark room where many performers are performing. Um, you run into the issue of your eyes straining, you losing dark light vision, all kinds of different things come into play. However, the biggest is that it's just not good to look at. It makes software harder to use when it's hard to look at it. And so to that end, we really wanted to make a color scheme, find a color scheme that worked well for our software, as well as made it easy to look at for a long period of time in a dark room. This was something that we achieved quite well, I think, in the final design, and you'll see how nice it does look. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Toscanini, the interface itself is based around a watch, which I'm wearing currently. You can see a basic representation of it in the top left. Now, what's happening is the accelerometer in the watch is reading its X, Y, and Z orientation based on its initial calibration. So what I'm doing right now is just waggling my wrist back and forth, and you can see the X, Y, and Z axis is going up and down, all reading the data nicely, and it looks pretty cool. However, one of the biggest issues with this interface is the gesture recorder. You set your gesture to a length, let's say 5 seconds, and then you hit record. Well, am I recording? What's going on? I have no real way of knowing. And that can be kind of confusing and annoying, especially if you're trying to use the software quickly and you're just, you quickly, oh, I need to record that, press a gesture button, maybe you missed it, maybe it didn't start recording for some reason, maybe the watch isn't connected, who knows, but there's no, exactly, who knows, there's no way to know. And that's something we addressed in the final design and came out very well. Other aspects of the interface that we wanted to work with and try out were different layouts and designs for the interface. The main reasoning for this was that this software was put together in a rapid format. There isn't, previously to our project, there wasn't a lot of consideration about the efficiency or effectiveness of the interface. And this is something that we really wanted to work on for this project to make it as usable and productive for users as possible, especially those using it in live performance. And we feel that our new interface definitely has achieved this, and on top of that, it has gone above, in our minds, what we expected the result to be. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robby to talk about the new interface.
This is Robby again, and as you can see, we have the updated Toscanini gestural interface in front of you. We added a really cool color scheme here using gradients in each of the modules to make it a lot easier on the eye. We chose green because it's a nice neutral color, and it allows us to use colors like a light blue and white and some darker greens so that we can make certain features pop. This makes the device and the interface a lot more easy to use in a dark setting, such as a performance or in a studio. Our users are mostly musicians and artists doing live performances, so we wanted to make sure that it's very easy to see what you're doing very quickly while the light setting is rather low. We realize that artists need to react very quickly, so we've updated the modules to have certain colorings for meters and a different color for the gesture. We allowed the gestures to be the only white portion of the entire interface, which is the most important part because it is good to have visual feedback and see exactly how the software is reacting to your motion before it's actually used in whatever audio or visual setting you may need it for. We've upgraded the watch design so that it looks a lot better and is a lot more pleasing to the eye. And this way, in further upgrades, it'll be a lot more expressive. For example, we are looking into ways to make the watch tilt in response to the actual watch movement. We've updated the buttons, like I said, to have a light blue color, which is a lot easier to see. And some of the buttons are darker, which can also be easier to see. top center modules here have all been combined into one. Reducing the lines in between each axis has made it a lot easier to read and reduce the clutter. The calibration module on the bottom right features two buttons that we've made a lot larger and we've balanced out as far as their placement in the module. We've also updated the calibration progress bar to have a label, so it's a lot easier to tell what you're looking at. As you can see, while it's calibrating, a very bright blue line moves across the bar and will let you know when you are finished. And again, buttons allow you to change which values are being used. And it's a lot easier to see the feedback, as when you click it, it's a lot darker. This way, if you accidentally click on something, you'll see, or if you try to click on something, you'll know that you have successfully clicked on it. Over here in the gesture recorder module, we've added a readout for each of the three axes. That way you can see the gesture as you're recording it, and you can see which gesture has been stored. I'll show you how that works real quick by setting the gesture record length to 51 seconds and recording a gesture. As you can see, each axis has been recorded in real time, and as soon as the gesture is finished recording, it is stored right here so that it can be used later. It will stay there until it is overwritten by recording another gesture. Here we'll record a short 10-second gesture. This new feature makes it a lot easier to utilize the gesture recording module, as it is easier to understand which gestures you are using and where they are stored and for how long. As you can see, we've reduced quite a bit of the white space and we've balanced out the size of each of the modules. This makes it a lot easier to read and a lot easier to see which module you are using, especially, as said before, in a live setting. We feel that this is a much better interface because it's a lot easier to look at and it is a lot more responsive. You can see readout a lot better. As you watch these bars jump up and down, it's easier to tell which axis is operating in which way. Buttons are a lot more tactile now, and you can tell whether or not they are on because the color is a lot brighter. Before, the white and black everything just blurred into each other. Here, each module is definitely separated and very easy to see as so.